Ah, so someone's listening to me. I can see someone's in the chat. Hello. There's no worms today. It's just me chatting to me, possibly. And I see there's someone else in there. Two of you in there now. Hi, guys. You'll have to type in your questions, queries, whatever. It's me in the workshop, just doing what I normally do in the workshop, putting shavings on the floor. So hopefully you can hear me. If someone would like to leave a comment to say they can hear me at least, that would be good. Gerard and Chris, good afternoon to you guys. Well, I'm just doing what I normally do in the workshop, building up a bit of stock. So I'm going to have a chat to you if you like to type in anything, questions, queries, what am I doing? I can see most of it, not necessarily straight away, but welcome to my little world where I can produce bits and pieces. You can see how it's done. You can ask me questions if necessary. It's only pen turning today. Just realised that there's only a few in the box and I need to build up stock for next month when we open again at the museum. So, nice simple thing to do. Don't need to concentrate too much. So I can also chat with you guys. So what's the volume like your end? Or can you hear me is another thing. Don't want that. Hide. So what's the volume like, guys? Can you hear me? Can you see me? The donut thing was on, please. Yes, we are. You're loud and clear. Jolly good. Will you think about the donut? Yep. That will be next. When am I on? Next Tuesday's project. Because it doesn't matter if I run on a little bit longer than the hour and a quarter that I would get on a Thursday. That's why I cancelled it from last Thursday. I know you guys are keen to see it. Well, Gerard is anyway. And there's a couple of you out there that want to see how it works and possibly a little bit more about it. It's a useful piece of equipment to make. You don't use it every day, you don't use it every week, but when you do use it, it's a godsend. So I'm making these a streamline, slightly fatter in the middle than the slimline ones. I don't particularly like the slimline ones, they're just too twee in the middle. So I've usually make these two-piece ones. They're a nice, cheaply priced kit. I know they've all gone up now. They're close on £2.50 a kit, but they're still pretty good value. And soon as I give 90% of these kits away, turned to the veteran centre so that they can make some or generate some funds for their homeless and whatever they do. It's I need to think about keeping costs down, and I find there's more skill in turning a two-part than there is in a one-part. But a lot of people say, "Oh, you never sell a two-part." Oh, well, the question is, do I need to sell the two parts? The ones I have sold in the past, people have been happy with. And not such a heavy pen, and the £2.50 against something in the region of £9–10 for the better quality one-piece ones. You get the turning experience with these. So that was a rubbishy old bit of 120. I just realised I've got a new piece out. Just lightly take it down, get rid of the turning marks, go over to 240. Trying not to sand the metal. Don't really want to keep taking a few thou off of the bushings each time and then wonder why the pens don't fit very well, because you gradually shave down the bushings. That was 240, and this is a bit of 600 kind of jump, but it seems to handle it. I'm not pressing hard, so I'm not making massive score lines in it to have to sand out each time. Not sure what that is, but it's quite a hollow grained piece of wood. I think it's teak, although I'm not 100% sure. And I'm going to use my normal method of finishing pens, and I don't care what anyone says, it works for me. CA glue. So I've sanded. Can't say much, Chris says, because he's at work in the clay pits. Signal can be rubbish. Yeah, what's that? St Austell clay pits, Chris? Know the area very well. It was bad enough getting a signal on the boats. And I used to help out on Coast Rescue. So a couple of drips on the paper, drip it on, wipe it along while it's still wet. This is medium. Leave it to dry off for a few seconds. Yeah, I think it is teak. Bit of reclaimed teak that I got from somewhere, salvaged from somewhere. I'm not fussy where the wood comes from. Not fussy what the wood is in a lot of instances, particularly for the pens, because they don't take anything massive. So while that one's drying, I'll get the next pre-drilled, pre-glued, end squared or trued up ready piece to put on. And it's just like a production line. Yes, Gerard, that is CA. Like I say, I use it as a finish. Frowned upon by many, but if you look at the instructions for what's the American one that everyone's doing now, it does say can be used as a finish. So I will just take that off, put that in the curing rack, give it a few hours. So one blank, bleaching it out a bit, but I can't do much about that. See, it's cedar, so it's not a massive colour to it, but there's quite a nice grain on it. So all I do is split it in half, and I know that I need 52mm on either side, so I usually cut it at 53. Drill it out for the 7mm tube, glue the tube in with a foaming glue rather than CA. CA is too brittle to glue tubes into wood, and the wood is too absorbent, so the glue disappears before it gets a chance to grab. So before I cut it, I mark the centre, mark across the centre, and as I do possibly 100 at a time, I'll number mine, which is why these are number 15. So after it's glued in, cured for 24 hours, I'll put the cleaner, which is just a reamer, into the Jacob's chuck in the jaw, in the lathe, push them on, slightly hollows one end, trues it up, and then all I need to do then is choose which end I'm going to have the bottom. And I always work the bottom to what is the headstock end. Now, as the pen is heavier at the bottom, if there is a slight curvature to the grain, or if there's more of a knot, I will put that 9 times out of 10 at the bottom. Put the bigger bit in the middle, lock it up, wind it up, and we're ready, good to go. So Chris, Melbourne, near St Stephen's. Oh, you're not down at not in Polruan Harbour then. That's where I used to run on the boats down there as a Coast Guard lookout with a mate. So how long do you cure them for, and how many coats do you give them? I find, Gerard, that 1 coat is adequate. This is the medium from Everbuild. It's the 50-gram bottles, and you can get 3 of those for just under £10. Whereas if you're using Starbond from America, I think 1 bottle, 1 tube is nearly £10. So I only put 1 coat on unless the wood is very porous and sported and pretty manky to start with, then I might put 1 on, sand it, let it cure, sand it back, and put another 1 on top. So to finish these afterwards, all I will do is buff them. I've got an 8-inch buffing wheel underneath there with a bit of compound on. Do them all that way, top and bottom. Put them back in my little homemade rack. That's my little homemade rack. Gives me access to quite a few. So that is 4-inch nails driven through a bit of ply, drilled and driven through a bit of ply, screwed onto a baseboard, and it takes, I can either have a top and a bottom, or I can get both of them on the one. So I do quite a few like that, and then mass produce them. Basically, it's a lot easier to set the lathe up and do a couple of dozen than what it is to just do one. So it means knocking everything out, putting the chuck and the buffing wheel on, just to do two bits, to take it off, to push it all together, or to canubra wax it first on a separate wheel. So it's so many different small procedures that it's a lot easier just to run it through as one production run, which is what I'm doing. Hiya kid, you're up then. Hi Nick. Like I say, if you want if you got any questions, it's only me here talking to you guys. I'm here anyway, producing my artistic turnings. Well, I've got to say that, haven't I? But I'm just looking at building up stock. So it's pens today. Just turning the bodies down and getting them all CA'd ready for the next part of the procedure, which will be possibly next time I'm down, or a couple of days' time, depends when I next come down. That's on maximum volume for this lathe, unless I change the belts, and I don't really want to change the belts because it means getting in the back, getting in the end, getting big digits in little gaps. So this one works for me. I think we're about 1200. Speed isn't the essence of a good turning. Toolmanship is the essence of good turning. The only time I would possibly change the drive ratio would be if I were doing acrylics, polyesters, and as I don't like turning acrylics, polyesters, that's not going to happen much, and it's sometimes easier just to turn them at this speed but slightly slower. Speed is the good thing for acrylics, but it's not necessarily a good thing for wood. This little 1.5 inch spindle roughing gouge gives me a decent finish. Don't know whether you can see that, but not the best of pictures because it's a bit bleached out. Doesn't help much, but apart from one or two small ridges on fairly coarse wood, which a bit of 120 will take out, that's good to carry on turning. Just going to refine that. I am cutting it, not scraping it. Scraping it is dead square. I'm at an angle, and I've got about a 45 grind on this little baby, so it is going to be cutting. Just leaving it slightly proud of the bushings, so that when I run over it with the paper, this is a bit of 120. Yes, the middle part is thicker, Gerard, because these are streamline kits, not slimline. So on the streamline kit, the center band is fatter, but you still use the same tubes and the same bushing at the end. You can tell this is cedar because it starts to clog up the paper a bit. So all I'm doing is just lightly taking the ridges off of the plough furrows just to make life easier. So that's a bit of 120, straight onto 240. Being that cedar is a soft wood, you've got to be careful not to stab your finger in, which is why I tend to make a sling out of the paper so that it's got more cross support. If I just poked a finger in the back, I can dent the wood. Particularly with it being this soft. A couple of, you can't, yes you can just see it on the picture. There's a couple of little lines there where I was a little bit heavy with the gouge. I can make it easier, just take them out with a bit of 120. I'm not proud. I can use 120 just to get there. None of us are perfect. Some are better than others, and we do have one or two absolutely perfect turners amongst us, or so they tell us. They never make a mistake. They know exactly what they're doing. Wouldn't own up to that. I'm human. Last time I checked, so we all make a mistake. So I've dropped the speed down for sanding. I'm sanding at about 450 now. And this is a bit of 600. Wipe it off with the hand. Hello, Douglas. Duncan's come in as well. How long do you let it cure, Gerard? I try to give it 24 hours. Doesn't always work, but at least a couple of hours. It's more critical this time of year when it's cold, I think, than in the midsummer, although CA cures with dampness, doesn't it, moisture. So another little trick, these CA bottles are welded, made in two through the middle. You can't easily squeeze on that line. You can squeeze opposite. So what I do is I take off a little bit of the instruction band that I know is basically on the end of that line, so that I can pick this up without looking at it and squeeze it on the easy bit to squeeze. So with the lathe running at 450, with 12 layers of paper, a couple of drips on the paper to start with, walk it along, gently squeeze, drips at a time, and that's still wet enough to do that. So, is longer better? Well, I'm guessing you're asking for curing, Gerard. Once it's cured, it's cured. So I don't think that leaving it for 6 months, it would be any better than leaving it for 24 hours to fully cure. It would probably be trial and error. You can say that's almost dry now, but not cured. And it's the cure that I'm after, not just being dry. Just about dry. It's touch dry. Another 2 for the curing rack, drying rack. Cameras there. Let's do a swap. Put that one there so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay. No, it's worse. So I've got lights that I can change around to make things easy for you guys. It's working out what configuration I need. And this is a new one. So this is actually dimmable. It gives you the colour more, but you still can't physically see the grain in it. But these are only £20 cameras. They're not specifically for you to see what grain matches are. Some woods will show up better than others, I dare say. This looks like this might be another piece of teak. So again, exactly the same process. Work out which end, and these are pretty straight grained, so it doesn't make any difference. Center bushing, top piece on, top bushing, lock it down, clamp it up. Now I find this style that actually clamps onto the centers rather than the point sticking into the end of the mandrel are far stronger. You can get flex within itself if you've just got a standard 60-degree point in the end. So you can bend these quite easily. Well, you can bend them, not necessarily quite easy, but as that 1.5 inches goes inside, that gives me more support and the same amount of, I can put a lot of pressure on that and I can't bend it. I probably could if I wanted to try really hard. Okay, Gerard questioning in one word, would it be safe? On the safe side, 24 hours at the most. Yes, it would be. Like I say, I've gone as little as a couple of hours when I've needed to do one because someone wanted a specific one. So that's not a problem. And is it a problem with 2 coats of CA? Would it need? They would both need curing. You can use the spray on, what do they call it, accelerator. But if you're not careful doing that method, you can turn the CA white. Doesn't always like the additional speed in curing. Unless you're going to do 1 or 2 at a time, turn them first thing when you come into the workshop, put them aside and then finish them off before you go out of the workshop. Because like I say, they don't take long to turn. It's probably the curing that takes the time. I've never really timed myself on the turning, but I would think less than 5 minutes if I was putting my mind to it and not chatting and keeping sort of half an eye on the computer to see who's asking questions. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a hobby. I don't need to bust a gut to get bits and pieces out in record time. I do run a production line, but I run a production line for me, to save me keep changing tooling over from one to another. This is a bit soft. Let's go over to the favoured tool of none or few. Take the whispers off with this. Or you can take a massive amount. Just gliding. It's the weight of the tool on the wood. I'm not pushing it, I'm not forcing it. I know that's the angle of the cut, so I'm basically sliding it back and starting again. I'm not going to take it off and then put it on and then wonder why it's cut a thread on there. I'm going to find the angle of the cut, which is there. Keep the angle of the cut, just run it back on itself. On bigger work, you can actually cut both ways with the skew. I wouldn't advise absolute beginners to try. It's a little bit hairy to start with, although most of you have inadvertently done it. Let's turn the heater off. Be breaking out a sweat soon. Right, drop the speed down. 120, exactly the same as previous. Keep it moving. Not too fast for the speed of the lathe, but keep it moving. As soon as I sit with that there, that will generate what looks like an old 78 record. It will cut lines, so keep it moving all the time. I find this is the shape of pen that sells. I've had not arguments, discussions with others that have said, oh, they can't sell these, they must be figure of 8. Oh, yeah. They look ugly to me. And if you've got arthritic hands, we can find you a bigger pen. If you've got a poor grip, we can choose a different method as well. I'll see if I can find a slightly harder blank, see if I can find a bit of oak. And I'll show you that different method of finishing the outside, slightly fatter. Who's come in? Lawrence has come in, has he? Or Duncan? Anyway, whoever's come in, welcome. Question there from Duncan. What is the pen type that you are using? Missed it because he was late in. Well, that's not a problem. This isn't pre-programmed. This is, I'm down in the workshop. I might as well chat to you guys, although it sounds like I'm chatting to myself, but I get used to that. I always get the right answers anyway. These are streamline kits. That is sanded down to 600. Find a piece of paper. Now don't laugh, but this is commercial loo roll. It's a long but slightly thinner. So it's only barely 4 inches across, but it's 12 inches long. I tear it in half. There's 2 bits of paper there. It's barely 2-ply. It's very thin, but it's good. It's not as absorbent as Andrex or anything like that. I've found 12 layers, so that's 3. Fold it again is 6. Fold it again is 12 layers, and I don't then get stuck to the paper, or the super glue doesn't come through. It does at times, but that's usually me being awkward. So a couple of drips on here to start with. Run it along, not too fast. You don't want to wipe it off as soon as you're putting it on. It's still wet on the paper. That's job done. So we've got a V Pits in here now. That's a name that I don't think I've seen before. So who is V? It's Vicky. Hi Vicky. Thank you for stopping by. This is just a quickie that I've set up because I'm like that. What have I got? That looks like it might be a piece of oak. Yes, it is. So I pre-bag mine. Kill that light. I pre-bag mine, so that all the kit is in there. It's glued up. It's ready for me to take out if I'm down the museum. I can just take a dozen bags or whatever I want to take down there, if I can ever get into the bags. The whole kit's in there. It's all been machined up ready. There's a bit missing from that. No, there isn't. It's all there. So we get this off, which will have cured or dried by now. Won't have cured, will have dried. Yeah, that's quite dry. It's touch dry, and you know it's dry because the centre band is holding in there on its own. So that's one coat of CA, and that goes on the drying rack or production rack, call it what you will. Now this is oak. Let's see which way this sits together. Now you can't really see it. Yes, you can, just about. The grain is slightly diagonal across there. And it doesn't really matter which end will be the bottom. So I'll put that on there. Make sure the centre bands line up. Lock it down. Thanks, Chris, for stopping by. Catch up with you someone else. Don't work too hard this afternoon. Oh, Vicky's been here, but don't usually chat. That's fine. Don't have an issue with that. Where are you from, Vicky? Are you UK based or a foreigner to our shores? Because we quite often end up with a couple of Australians in as well. Sometimes a South African, depending on what they're doing and what everyone else is doing. Texas. Welcome from across the pond, Vicky. Hope to see you in again. Right, this is oak. I will show you a different way of finishing it, but the basic turning is exactly the same. You can tell that's cross-grained because it's wanting to grab. Once you get rid of the corners, it's not quite so bad. So it's rubbing the bevel all the time, picking up the cut. There's the bevel. So speaking to Vicky, if you like what I'm doing and you like what you're seeing, hopefully you've subscribed to my channel, and I'm guessing you might have subscribed and hit the bell notification, which is how you've jumped in now and seen it. I could be totally wrong, not the first time, but if you haven't subscribed, would you please? And if you guys like what I'm doing, even though it's just a quick pop-up one, give it the thumbs up. I know you can't see how many thumbs there are up or down, but whether they're up or down, it makes no difference to me. It just informs YouTube that you like what I'm doing, and they will push more content like this your way so that you can see others what they do as well. So, just a little bit proud. I've got to have a bit of light. Sorry guys. That's better. Just need to see that end. Just to take it down. Not the best of places. Right. Steve Jobbins has just crept in. Hello, Steve. If I miss any of you guys, I apologise. I'm actually turning, not watching what's going on totally in the chat. Just fine-tuning it with a skew. Right. Drop the speed down. Attack it with a bit of 120. Keep it moving. No, I tend to use stains, Vicky, rather than paint. I don't think, and this is me personally, that there's enough material on a pen to get the desired effect from Joe Sonia's. I am more of a natural wood guy rather than everything's got to be stained or painted. That was 120. I wonder if I can invest in a new bit of 240. Have I got some? Yep, got a new bit of 240. To hell with the expense. Nick Castle's off. Thanks for stopping by, Nick. So like I say, this is totally impromptu. I'm in the workshop. I know what I'm doing. You know, I can generally always get a set of questions thrown at me either when I'm on or whether I'm worming for Andy. So I might as well use this time to answer some questions. You can see exactly the way I work. That's 240. This is 600. Now I said I would show you how I adapt these for arthritic hands. Bear with me, guys. Toolbox is up other end of the workshop, but I know what I want is in there. Wagner texturing tool. The wheel on the end is cross-hatched. It's like a knurl, or would be the equivalent to a knurl in metalworking. So I'm keeping this down at about 450, making sure that the wheel is clear of the tool rest. I'm going to press it in and leave it longer than what one would think you need it. Gently press it in a little bit along, and the pattern should pick up. What I'm looking for is a series of diamonds. I'm keeping the knurling tool as square as I can to the wood. One more. Lightly find the pattern. Press it in. Let's see if I can. You can't see. Can you just see that? I can just about see it on my monitor, which is quite a bit smaller than probably most of what you're looking at. But the texture from the tool has embossed into the wood. So this is a new light. I'm just playing with it, see if I can make it any better. Don't think so. But once I've just given it a quick lick over with 600, it is only a quick lick over. And if I could find the brush that I wanted, I've got a hog's hair bristle brush, but I can't. So we use a conventional 1-inch decorating brush just to go over the top of it. Grab my piece of paper again. So if you missed it the first time, 12 layers of thin loo roll. It's 2-ply. So third, and again, so that's 3 layers. Fold it in half. That's 6 layers. Fold it in half again. That's 12 layers. And like I say, that stops the CA from burning my finger or me sticking to it. I think once I've got some CA on there, it will show up the pattern so that you can possibly see it. You can just see it on the end there now. See where it's darkened. This is where I'd wish I'd got a decent camera. Oh. Okay, that's lucky. bushing pulled off and I didn't realise. Unfortunately, I see where it bounced. Just let that go off. Still a little bit sticky. Right. Now you can just about see that, can't you? You can't see the pattern very well, but you'll have to take my word for it that that is diamonds all the way around there. So that gives quite a non-slip grip to a pen, and I like it better than the rubber bits that you can get in these slimline kits, which means you have to cut an inch short on that, then put the rubber on, then turn it to fit the rubber. It always looks to me very cheap and amateurish. Perhaps that's just me. When I come back, I see there was a comment there from Vicky. I'll read that. I get distracted if I don't follow through what I'm talking about. Vicky likes regular wood better. Yeah, so do I. It's got a grain for a reason. It's got character for a reason. Why hide it? Sometimes you can enhance it a bit, particularly on bigger stuff like bowls, platters, goblets. But let's keep it as natural as we can most of the time. This is going to be a U one. I'll just cut them and mix them. I'm not fussy what they are, because I know they're all going to get turned and sold, and 90% will be donated to the veterans over here so that they can sell them and hopefully make a piece of money out of them. I've got sapwood on the side, which isn't picking up at all well, but that will all get turned off, so it's a fairly straight grained piece of yew, but yes, you can see it there. There is a little bit of purple streak in there, which I think I'm going to lose, but hey ho, and you can see the white on the side there now. Which that will all come off because that's only about 1 mil deep. So let's thread this one on and get going. It is almost perfectly straight grained, so it's going to be what it's going to be. But this is my preferred way of turning pens. Like I say, there are many ways of doing it. We have a couple quite often in the chat that totally condemn the use of CA as a finish because they've never used it and they don't want to admit to it, I think, half of the time. But it works for me. It might not work for you unless you try it. And I've found the finish is brilliant and long lasting. Some may argue that it is a plastic finish. So, polyurethane's a plastic finish of sorts. Most of the Americans, Canadians use CA as a finish. And a lot of you guys will put on 10, 15, 20 coats of the thin stuff. and give it a proper plastic bag finish. I've got a pen indoors that is used by the wife every day, possibly when she's been cooking. Dirty hands, greasy hands, we don't care. We pick up the pen. We know we can wipe it down afterwards with a damp cloth if necessary. The finish on that is as good today as it was when I made it 15, 20 years ago. I do all my bathroom cord pulls the same, light cords, light pull cords the same with CA. Takes me a little bit longer to do them than just using a wax. And I've sold quite a few hundred since I've been turning. And people keep coming back and saying, oh, we bought one of your cord pulls 5 or 6 years ago. We don't need another one. It's still as good as new. So why should I change anything that works for me? And I'm told it works as well by customers coming back and saying, oh, we'd love to buy another one, but we've only got one of those, so there's no point in buying a spare. Not if the existing ones lasted 6, 7 years. So like I say, it works for me, so I'm going to carry on doing the same. Right. The one thing I will say when using a skew, particularly on small pieces like this, is to work off of the end rather than onto the end. You should escape with no splitting. No. I thought I'd got a computer glitch, but we haven't. It's come back, so hopefully you 9 guys are still watching. We still have contact. I don't know whether you can see the whispers that I can get off with the skew. It's not all about I must get it off in 2 passes. If it's 20 passes, that's fine. I'm looking at minimal sanding if I can, not bruising the wood by pressing too hard. And I think we've achieved that on this piece. Wonder if, so I'm talking to myself. Doesn't happen all the time, but does most of it. Is that any better? It's a little bit better. Let's get that one out of the way. I can still see, so that's okay. Oh, Robert. Mr. Hodge. How are you today? Richard just popped in. Hello, mate. What's the world like up your end of the world, Richard? Is it still sunny? It was earlier on, I believe. It's It's dry here, but quite nippy down south. Oh, Hodge, don't put it on, mate. It's only a little needle in your arm. Did they not give you a sweet afterwards for being brave? They do over here. I'll stop and read that in a minute, Steve. I can't concentrate and read at the same time. I'm a guy. Let me just get this sanded up to 600. Give it a quick coat of CA. And I can let that dry. And I'll read your question or comment, whatever it is. It's a question by the looks of it. Right, Steve. You've just acquired 2 record power bowl gouges, 1/2 inch and 3/8. The style with the long, record have all got red handles, maroon handles. The flute is really narrow and very deep. Well, if it's very deep, that would be a bowl gouge. If it's shallow, it's a spindle gouge. So, what grinds have you used? What are you used to? Let's record. So I haven't lost you guys. I'm just down the other end of the workshop, just trying to find what I'm looking for, which is that one. This is a record with the maroon handle. Believe me, it does say it on there. You just about see it. This is a 1/2 inch on 3/4 bar. So this is an English 1/2 inch one. Although that looks very small for 1/2 inch. Doesn't look much more than. This would be classified as a 3/8. And it's on. It's a 3/8 and it's on 5/8 stock steel. So can you see the shape of it? Is it that deep, Steve? You can say this is 5/8 across and the actual flute is 3/8 across. So it's a rogue one. But that has got a swept back grind, Welsh grind, call them what you will. I think I'm a cross between 2 different grinds. There's a fully swept back grind and a standard Welsh grind, but it works for me. That is the main grind is 45 degrees, measured from the protractor in the flute to the outside. That's 45 degrees. And then I put a secondary bevel on the back to reduce the length of the bevel. So you like a 55 degree with a little bit of a swept back, but the flute is so deep, and yes, that's a 12.5 mil or 3/8, yeah. So I find 55 too sharp for me. I find the 45 just about right. It's a compromise between the 40-40 or whatever, but it works for me. And what ain't broken, I ain't going to change for the sake of it. We can keep regrinding, rechanging the bevels, the profiles as often as we like, but each time you change the bevel profile, you lose a bit of steel. I've found over particularly the last 10 years, I've stuck to that and it works. So if you find 55 is a good one for you, carry on with 55. Richard is saying he has a 40-40 grind on both. It's personal preference. We can only suggest what is good for us, and just because it's good for us, we might be cack-handed and work totally different to what you do. So you never know until you try it. But all mine are now the same. Yeah, I can appreciate that, Steve, that you're in the chair. So have you tried a slightly shorter handle? Is that practical for you? Might not be practical. Like I say, I can't say that you've got to have a 40-40, you've got to have a 55, you've got to have 60, you've got to have 35, whatever. It's what is comfortable for you, what works for you. We're all slightly different. I'm well and truly different. I have both of my lathes set up 2 inches higher than what is recommended, because everyone says, oh, you need the spindle height at elbow height. Well, my elbow is at least 2 inches below centre of the spindle, but as I've got a bad back, it works for me. That doesn't look like that's the right combination there. They both got the same numbers on, but the grain at the moment doesn't want to run through. Have I picked up? Looks like I picked up a 6 and a 9. Okay, that can be done later on. We'll find another one. Like I say, I cut these blanks 100 at a time, drill them 100 at a time, and usually buy the kits when I can afford to at 100 at a time. Have a look, see what this is. This looks like it might be walnut. Get some light on it in a second. So what was that? Maybe while I'm not getting on well with the record power because of the long handle. Yeah, 2 options there, mate. You can knock the handle off. If you can gently hold the blade in a vise, you can tap the handle off. What am I looking for? Someone's moved it. It was there last week. That one. I'm going to slightly compare two different chisels, but they're both the same blade length. One's a 3/8 and one's a 1/2 inch. The difference in length is the brown one is 3 inches shorter than the black one. So I can get this one in and around a lot easier than I can get the black one in and around. Both the same angle, both the same grind, so I can pick one up, don't need to reset the brain, but I can get a lot closer than that. If you hold the steel in the vise, gently tap it off with a hammer, turn yourself another handle that's shorter, drive it into it. Whatever shape you like, rather than chop it off there, and you've got a nice square bit to keep stabbing you in the leg, turn your own size handle. This one on here it's an 8.5 inch handle. The one on the black is 12.5 inches. With the bevel rubbing, I have ample control with that. So there's a thought you might like to try without knowing what tools you've got. This one, again with this has got an 11 inch handle in it, or on it. This is part of the Robert Sorby 2000 range. You get interchangeable bushes in there so that I can put 3/8, quarter, or even a half, I think it is, fits in there. This is held by 2 grub screws. If I want to, where is it? Is it that one? Sorry, I'll keep disappearing away from the camera, but it's not a big workshop, so I've got it laid out to fit what I need to get in. Right, these are 2, let's bring the camera down a bit, 2 grub screws in there that hold it in. That's just a steel. Normally you would put it flute up with the grub screws in the top. I needed to get in fairly tight the other week, so I turned it over half a turn and tightened it up on what is in effect the back of the bevel, back of the tool. So I've now only got 4.5 inches sticking out. So the overall length of this one is now only 16 inches. Yeah, just over 4 inches sticking out the end. So there's 2 or 3 ways you can do it, depending what you've got. I just happen to have that, so that worked well for me. And I've got a few bits of the modular system. I've got a few bits of everything. I get to clear workshops. You think the length of the handle is relative to lathe power? No, not necessarily. Lathe power is irrelevant if you're doing. I can turn these pens on my 1.5 horse motor on the big 42-inch pole wood up the end there. That's got a 3-phase motor on it, so it would toss me around if I got caught, or bend the handle, whichever the way you go. But on a small lathe, and I think Richard has only got a little 3/4 horse, you should be able to, depending on what, it's an awkward one without digging yourself into it too much, but the diameter of the blank should be fairly relative to the speed that you're running at. And there's a lot of people say, oh, you need maximum speed. You don't need maximum speed. It's nice to have maximum speed, but you don't need it. I have a set of data, and I sent it over to Douglas yesterday because he was questioning what speed should this blank be running at, because it's all down to peripheral speed. So if you've got a 3-inch disc on there, and it's running at 450, 500 revs, you can work it out. It's pi, which is 3 1/7 times the diameter round or whatever. But that is not going to run as fast speed-wise, peripheral speed-wise, as a 6-inch or 9-inch or a 12-inch wide blank. If you measure round, or for argument's sake, a 3-inch blank is going to be about 10 inches round. A 10-inch diameter blank is going to be about 33, 34 inches round. So at the same speed, the wood is moving a lot quicker round the outside. I don't know whether I've explained that very well. I know what I'm talking about, but I can quite often get into situations like that. I know what I'm talking about, but it doesn't always come across the right way. So it's not revolutionary speed that you need to worry about. It's peripheral speed that you need to consider. So a 10-inch bowl, if you can get 10-inch on there, like I say, is moving at about 34 inches, shall we say 34 inches a second, as compared to a 3-inch bowl, which is moving at 10 inches a second. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. You've got to sit down and work it out yourself, but it's peripheral speed, not the speed of the motor, not the power of the motor. You can have a very big motor going very slow. You can have a small motor, 3/4 horse motor on an inverter going very slow. Most of the inverters for the smaller motors sort of limit them to about 500. And the only reason that is because the slower the motor, the more power it's taking, the more heat it's generating. Well, I think Robert and Richard between them have run through it with Stephen. Like I say, I'm happy to chat about it if anyone wants to give me some verbal chat to me on Messenger. Give me a video call on Messenger, and I can chat to you as long as you want to chat to me. That's why these days are quite useful for just discussing things. Like I say, I'm in here anyway, so there's no skin off my nose. Can't always concentrate while I'm turning, but I can certainly chat when I'm talking. The records are 15.5 inches long. I don't suppose finance would permit you to go over to the Simon Hope handle, because you can lock that in at whatever protrusion you like. And it's an alley handle, I believe. Never used one. Physically seen one, but can't remember what it was. So you have to try it, Steve, to find out what you want, what you like. But rather than trash a chisel in a chop saw, you've got the facilities, you can turn yourself a handle. And if you like it, you can make a better job of it or glue it in, whatever. Right, I'm going to carry on with the next one. This is a bit of, it's going to be walnut. Definitely walnut this time. So I might, as it's wild grain, might end up with a little bit of an issue with the spindle roughing gouge. Very little of the wood actually running parallel, the grain actually running parallel. It's getting the initial corners off. Once it's 95% round, it does cut a lot quicker, as you can see now down this end. So I've only gone quiet because I don't like eating, particularly walnut. Don't like eating many of them. Not so bad now, it's coming off in shavings, very light shavings, even with a big tool. Need a bit of light over here, guys. Sorry if it burns it out. I can't see that end at the moment. If you've never tried turning pens, it might be worth having a go. I usually get my kits from Kits and Bits, Dave G down in Kent. He does. The price that is on his website is the price you pay. It's inclusive of postage. If you go to places like Axminster and Turner's Retreat, I'm not saying they don't do good pens, good service, but you can end up paying quite a lot for postage. So it's always nice to know that you're not going to get stitched up at the end when you put your order in for another £11–12 postage and delivery. Well, I think it is anyway. And if you're not sure about what kits you want, if you ring Dave up, it won't be a 5-minute phone call. He's worse than me for chatting, but he's a really nice guy. Now let's get the screen back together. What have I done? Nothing. That's it. I decided. PC decided it wanted to go to sleep. So Steve says he's been thinking of the Simon Hope when he can afford it, maybe. It is quite an investment. There's quite a cost involved. But it does give you modular, because I think he does 3 different length handles. That's it, just a little bit of light I can see. All I can say, guys, is thank you for stopping by, having a chat. I'm quite happy to provide my knowledge on questions that anyone might have. If you have any. What size is the roughing gouge? Bear with me, I think it's 1.5 inches. It's 1.5 inches overall width. So I think this one comes up as what they call an inch. Where's the other one? One of them's got sizing on it. No, it hasn't. But this one is a brown. I'm trying to work out what the handle is for you. I think it's a Henry Taylor. It's that one. No, it's not. It's Crown. So that's a Crown, but other makes are available. So that's 1.5 inches maximum overall diameter, and it's got quite a nice long straight section to the wing. So I use that as a skew instead of picking up a skew. Is it lazy? No, it's not lazy. It's using what you've got. If you can use it correctly without a catch, what is the issue? The other thing is, if I can turn a pen with a 3-foot felling axe safely, why can't I turn it with proper tools? I think you've all seen me do my little party piece with the felling axe, just to prove that it's not the tool, it's the way it's used. Yeah, you'll hear various YouTubers rave about them, but they have a deep pocket or access to money that we don't know about. They aren't cheap. They are a one-off item, the handle, and then you can replace the steels as you need them. My pleasure, Richard. I'm quite happy to talk to anybody if I can pass a little bit of information on to you, Lawrence. I'm quite happy. Like I say, I'm in here anyway. So let's turn the computer on, chat with you guys. Keeps you company. Keeps me company. Hopefully you've learnt a few things. If not, you've asked a few questions anyway. It's always good to have someone to chat to, particularly in the workshop. It's either that or I'll turn the computer off and have the radio on. So Stephen, you're already finding a preferred shape then, if you have HTs. I've never had a problem with HT steel. They always seem to work well, they hold their edge well. Thank you, Vicky. Hopefully I'll see you again if you're escaping now. I'm on next Tuesday evening, definitely. And that will be a bowl with 3 dishes in it to make it sort of clover shaped. It's one I've been promising to do for a couple of weeks, but things have got in the way, things have changed. Now I'm going to do it. You can actually see the grain on this now. I've just put a coat of CA on it. It's going to be quite a pretty piece of walnut when it's polished up. Does anyone make a roughing gouge without a thin tang? A spindle roughing gouge, all of them will have thinner tangs because of the bending of the forming of the bar. I think Simon Hope does a round tanged one which will fit in his handles. Not absolutely certain of that, but I believe someone said the other night that that's what they use. So without checking it out, honestly don't know. There's so many tools out there and so many coming along. Thank you, Vicky. And nice of you to introduce yourself this time. Like I say, we're quite a friendly crowd on here. Well, I think we are anyway, but I'm bound to say that. But, don't force anything on anyone. It's down to you. You're the one listening. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can turn it off. If you do like what I'm saying, you can carry on watching, which I'm assuming a lot of you have done, because there's still 9 in there watching me rabbiting or listening to me rabbiting away. So yes, this is quite a nice piece of walnut. What I'll probably do is once I finish these, I will take a bulk picture and put them up on my Facebook page so that you can see the difference between woods, and also that you've been part of it as well. So why shouldn't you see them? So what's the next one going to be? Looks like it might be teak. no particular order. Yeah, it looks very much like teak. I was hoping I'd get some mulberry ones, but haven't got round to them yet. So maybe they're in a different box. But the most exhaustive part on pen turning is actually putting the buggers together. Fat fingers that don't grip small things is not always a good thing. Feels like there's a bit of glue inside of that. There is. I think that's it. Let's loosen that off enough so we're around the right way. When I'm pushing these together, I can actually push a little bit of glue inside, particularly if I'm a little bit impatient with the cleaning the ends up. Simon Hope makes 16mm round bar. Thanks, Lawrence. I like the shape of the pens. It's the shape that the veterans ask me if I can do, because they're not as thin in the centre and they fit in the hand and they balance in the hand quite nice. I'm cramping my fingers. Do you have a Facebook page, Vicky? Or a YouTube channel that we can follow you on? Or are you just stalking us? I apologise that I'm a bit slow picking up the comments, guys. But I'm running on StreamYard, and the difference between StreamYard and YouTube is something like about 30 seconds the other night. Yes, Tuesday lunchtime when I wormed for Andy Heath. It was criminal. We'd forgotten what the question was by the time we'd got the answers. It was that slow. A couple of times the comments were, has it frozen? No, it's YouTube being ridiculously slow against the rest, I think. There was definitely a massive time delay. I'm going to show you a different bottom grip this time. As it's teak, it should hold it okay. Again, for the people that have got arthritic fingers, This one works quite well. To me, it's about thinking about the market that you're making for, not just making the pen because you have the kit. Like I say, 90% of these will be going to veterans. They get given them, they sell them, they make some money for their chosen charities. I make nothing out of them. It actually costs me because I buy the kits. Unfortunately, none of them are donated. Did at one time get a few donated, but money being what it is at the moment, there's nothing being donated. This is a thread chaser. This would be for putting threads on the outside, the male thread on. I've put a secondary bevel on the top, so using it as a negative rake skew, or scraper, shall we say. I'm just going to, let me put light on for this little, I do need to see. I know it's going to bleach it out, but I want to get parallel grooves, so I can pick up the last two grooves and gently run it round the shape of the, put as many or as few on as I like. As long as you pick up the previous ring, just like that. So simple, so effective. Let me just go over that with a bit of 600. But that gives you quite a good grip. So straight on with some CA over the whole lot. If you're going to do any of these grip methods, you need a fairly substantial piece of wood like oak, teak, straightish grained walnut. You should end up with a thread or grooves, whichever. Kill that, you can see it. Oh, you can just about see it. What I should do is pick the paper off a bit later on. It does occasionally leave a little bit on there, but I'm not worried about that. So Richard is asking me, hello Gav. Richard is asking me what finish do I use on my pens. Well, that is CA that's just gone on. It's the medium Everbuild. 3 50-gram pots, less than a tenner on eBay. So that will now be put in the rack to cure. It's dry, but it's not cured. You can just about see all the crap that's washed in there, but that'll pick that out when I buff it later on. So I'll put these in the rack to cure. and on to the next one. Let's see if I've got any mulberry in there. You're talking to yourself. No, I'm not. There's people out there. No. Must be ready for another day. That lot. So what have we got? We'll have another lump of yew. One of my favourite ones to turn anyway. It's can get quite nice grain configuration on it. Oh, Vicky's just stalking me. That's not a problem, Vicky. At least you're talking to me as well. We try and be friendly. Not here to wind anyone up, pee anyone off. This one will be interesting. I can't hold them both together. You can just about see there, that is a knot going through the corner of the wood. So I'm going to make that the bottom. And the wood at the top, the grain at the top, is almost across the wood there, and it's diagonal there. So that's going to be not the easiest, not impossible, but it will be a little bit slower than particularly the straight grained ones. Sorry, let's answer Richard's first. Sorry, Richard, I did see it and then got carried away, which is quite often the case with me. I put CA on my pens on bare wood, usually just one coat, but this is the medium one. I don't use the thin one because I find that is just too thin. One coat, sometimes two. If I do need to put two on, I will always sand it between coats with at least 600 paper just to knock it back. I let it cure for as long as I can, at least a couple of hours, preferably overnight, but it's not critical. It's the curing that is the issue, or that most people don't leave it long enough. So let it cure, because the difference between being dry and cured is a mess. Believe me, I've tried it. So let it cure, and then I've got a stitched mop that I've got in a chuck, an 8-inch mop in a chuck. I use Vonax as a lubricant cutting compound. I lightly buff them back to a nice shine. They go back in the rack. And I can get 48, I think it is, in this one. So that's today's and a few from the other day that I've done. So there's top and bottom in there. So I always leave a couple of gaps. So I'll buff that bit. That gets turned over, put in there. I'll buff the bottom bit. That gets turned over, so it's upside down now. So that's been buffed. I'll do the whole lot. I'll change the buffing wheel to a loose 8-inch mop and run it at maximum speed on this lathe, which is, like I say, about 1200-ish. But on an 8-inch wheel, we worked that out that it's 3 1/7 times the diameter to give you the speed or peripheral speed. Load it with Canubra wax off a stick. Oh, that one's beeswax, but they're the same sort of thing. Load it with Canubra wax, buff it on. Then when it's done, bottom will be the right way up, the top will be the right way up, so I know that that's been done then. So all this is 4-inch nails drilled through a piece of 3/8 ply, pushed through, screwed into a piece of 3/4 OSB. So that is stable. You can make them whatever length you like. That works for me. That gives me enough to do each time. So hopefully that's explained it to you. Richard's saying he's did exactly the same as what I do, so you must have been copying Richard, because I've had that rack for that one for at least 8 years. The smaller one, which I made to start with, which was only about 24, I gave that to another turner down the road, and she decides to do. She only wants to do 2 at a time, so that's fine. So we're only chatting today, Gav. Nothing special. If you've got any questions, you type them in. When it comes through, I will see if I can answer them. And I think these, well, it's up to you guys. If you think it's been worthwhile, just put a little yes, and I'll carry on. I'll carry on anyway, because it makes no difference to me. I've usually got the computer or the radio on. I've got the computer with the radio on, shall we say. I just fired it up with the cameras today. Cameras are always set up, particularly over this little one. I can work from down this end. It's things I need for reopening and what I sell. So I'm not doing anything special on these little pop-ups. I'm just doing what I need to restock with. So this one's going to be a little bit of a problem with the knot running through there, that corner. The grain in the top is diagonal. Grain in the bottom is almost straight, apart from that knot. So sharp tools, not too much weight on them. So we'll see how it works. And it's, once you've got the initial corners off, it's not too bad. It's a lot of bouncing. I'll go over to a spindle gouge. So I'm working from the middle out, nibbling it out, working downhill. I'm not worried about shape at the moment. You can't see the shine on this piece. Straight up, you can just about straight off the chisel, that is. And I'm not going to say it was freshly sharpened. I would be lying. It's been used a couple of times before, not much. I'm using the very nose of it, almost. I'm just a few degrees off. I'm about 3 minutes past on the clock, or 3 minutes to. So it's just twisted a fraction. That gives me a nice, easy, controlled cut with no weight against the wood. So work off the end. Roll back on the bevel, and straight in. Come back on the bevel, straight in. So then start the other end, pick up the cut, slide it back. Doesn't want to know. because of the grain. Still here, listening mostly. It's not a problem, Steve. I know the situation. Gav said he enjoys these. Richard enjoys them. Like I say, I'm happy to just pop up. I'm not going to set a time. I'm not even going to set a day. It's whenever I fancy coming down here, I'm going to need to turn a light on, so hopefully it doesn't bleach you out too much, which it is. But if you've all subscribed and you've hit the notification bell on the channel, you will know when I'm live, because you should, if YouTube are awake, give you a notification that there's someone on that doesn't really want to talk to himself. So I'm going to jump over to the skew, take whispers off of this. I find it just easier on a straight length spindle work to use the skew. Let's cut in a treat. And the shavings that are coming off as shavings, but there's no thickness to them. So again, work off the centre out. Go very slow, no weight when you're coming off of the ends. Because if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen just here, the last 2 or 3 mil. You know what that means? You turn the whole thing off, clean up the tube, and glue it into another one. On these slim lines, providing you haven't taken a massive amount of length off when you cut the ends clean, you can win yourself 1.5 mil. You've still got enough length for the tube to go inside, even if you cut it down a little bit. So providing it's the top section, you're okay. If it's the bottom section, you're not so easy. Again, it really depends how much you've taken off on the barrel trimmer to clean it up. It's literally the weight of the chisel on there. I'm quite happy with that. There's no thickness to those shavings. It's thinner than cotton coming off of there. An excellent beginner's item to make, because you do get to use and can learn to control the tools. And the difference between these and a one part, which a lot of people say, oh, I only make one parts because they sell better. Do they? With the kit 3 times the price, can you charge 3 times the amount? I should be selling these this year at £14.50. So as you can see, there's not a lot of money made against the time I don't have to buy the wood. That is the benefit for me, because all of my pen blanks are offcuts or cut-offs from bigger projects. I do happen to have, let's just wake up the screen again, do happen to have a good selection of pen blanks. I've seen pens that are worse finish than what that is up for sale. There's a little bit of ridging around the top there, but you can, I'll turn you off. Come on, camera. You're going to pick it up. You can pick up the knot there. You can see the knot that I've gone right through the centre of it. Can't quite see the grain on there. That is a disadvantage of doing smaller stuff. You can just see it on the very end. But I'm just going to go over that with a bit of 240 just to tickle it up. Don't think I need anything more abrasive than that. It's very cheap, Richard's saying. It's the price we can get down here. You're up in Scotland. I'm down on the south coast. It might be a more affluent society down here. Well, that's what they keep telling us. But I think we've got Scottish pockets on a lot of them. They certainly don't want to put their hands in and spend anything on that. What am I looking at? I'm looking at 2.5 pints of lager. If you want to relate it to something like that as a cost, they'd rather go out and get rat-arsed down here. Sad way the world is at the moment. Lawrence is going to escape. I have to put 6 chandelier down the club. Thanks, Keith, for sharing. Bye to everyone. Thanks, Lawrence, for stopping by. It's a lot easier with talking to people like yourself than me talking to myself. I see Sidley's in. I'm not sure how long you've been there, Sidley. I do apologise for not seeing you earlier. But like I say, I run these on my own, and they just happen when they happen. So that's 600. And that's silky smooth. So find another piece of paper. Douglas is running. Got to go. See you all later. Great demos. It's not really a demo, Douglas. It's just you watching what I'm doing. Yes, if you want to call it a demo, that's fine. But it's just, I'm here, so why not turn it on and amuse you guys if I can. Pass on some of the information that I've gleaned over the years. Like I always say, I'm only a proficient amateur hobbyist, not professional at all. I've had one lesson from a professional, and I've done one hell of a lot of pens and bits and pieces. I'm not a one-off person. I don't mind doing quite a few items to get used to working with wood. This one I still haven't put any sealer on there, cellulose on there yet. It's been too cold down there. And if I take it indoors, I self-moan. But that was the other night's live little tulip fluted drinking vessel. That will get, possibly tomorrow, get some cellulose on it, give it a chance to dry. You can't, it's no point me doing it down here when it's so cold. It just blooms. Yes, Vicky, it's a good excuse for leftovers. And if you cast your eye over that little lot, that is not even a tenth of what I've got in the way of pen blanks cut there. So rather than it go in the firewood sack, it gets cut up, generally speaking, to 22 mil square. And if I've got some nice straight grained longer pieces like this piece, that's 23 square, but that will be a magic wand with a pen in the end. So it's all got a purpose, and the purpose is to make me a few pound if it can. And I hate to see wood going on the fire, going on the bonfire, just for the sake of it. So this will be a streamline pen, and it will be in chrome. Most of mine are in chrome because I find particularly this style pen sells better in chrome than what it does in gold. Right, so trying to hold it together so you can see the grain. So there's virtually no missing grain on that. I don't know whether it is picking up. Well, there's virtually a continuation of grain. I'm going to open that by about 2 to 3 mil for the centre band to go in there. So that'll be, once that's buffed up and had a coat of Canuba on the top of that as well, that'll be really shiny. Nice job. Well worth the £14 that I should be charging for it. Another bit of oak. So I'll make them up, cut them up, glue them in, bag them up, so that if I'm going down the museum, I'll grab a dozen of these, 2 dozen of these bags. I know I've got the complete kit there. Or if someone comes along and says, oh, I'll turn a few for you, I'll just grab a handful of pre-cut pen blanks, glued in. There's the whole kit, all in the bag. I've done the donkey work. They get the credit with doing the, oh, I've just turned Keith a few pens. I'm not complaining. So this is a piece of oldish oak. The grain runs across at a diagonal, and looking at it, to me, there's more character in this end, so that would be the bottom end, the nib end. So Vicky's saying she likes the chrome better. It's more modern, I think, Vicky, than the good old gold. Nothing wrong with gold, don't get me wrong, but it's just, I think it looks a lot more modern. Gold on a fountain pen, yes, but gold on a little ballpoint pen like these are, not necessarily. So I'm going to, Sidley, don't you start. CA glue, I use it for a finish, yes, so do I. Much to one or two of them's discussed. But we had this conversation earlier. If you read the paperwork and the instructions for Starbond, which several of them now are doing, oh, you can't use it as a finish. Well, funny enough, if you read the instructions, it says can be used as a finish. There you go. Right, this is be the last one, and I'm going to go in, have a sit down, and have a cup of coffee. I meant to bring a drink down with me, but I forgot. So my fault. So this one will take a little bit longer than one or two of them. Not as long as that U one, I don't think. But like I've said all along, it's not down to speed. It's down to tool presentation. You can see that I'm got that so that I'm cutting. The handle's well down. Bring the handle on. As the handle comes up, it starts to cut. So that's locked into my side now. I'm just rocking from side to side. And I can put that back on in the same position, because all I've done is shaken out the crumbs out of the flute. Go slower towards the end, because we don't want it chipping out. I am slightly, I'll exaggerate there, I am slightly facing the cut, but not so much, not quite so pronounced as what I showed it there. Only about 2 degrees. I've got the choice of, do I keep going down? Still a bit to take off the very top. This is where a lot of people will reach for their negative rake or go in as a scrape. Possibly, if you've got decent wood, straight grained wood, you could get away with it. I'm certainly not going to try. Don't know what Vicky uses. Do you use carbide or traditional tools, Vicky? Coming from Texas, it wouldn't surprise me if it was carbide. Doesn't worry me if they are. Everyone to their own. Oh, we've got Webfoot Resin and Wood Creations. Good afternoon. That's a name I can't say that I've seen before. You obviously know Gav. Or are you just picking up his name? So Vicky's got to go and do some work chores. Well, I appreciate your time in here, Vicky. Like I say, you're always welcome. I can turn the light on. Like every one of you, you're always welcome. I'd much rather talk to someone than talk to myself. You never know what the projects are going to be that I'm doing, but it won't be just a one-off. It will be a few. A couple of weeks ago I did apples and fruit, only because I needed some. So it's apples and fruit. I do several. So it's Webfoot Resin and Wood Creations is David Eisenhower then. You changed your name, David. You're trying to baffle me. That's not hard. So yeah, there's 3 or 4 different things that I come out and batch make. Garden dibbers, mushrooms, kiddies wands. They're always quite a good seller. Pens, fruit, cord pulls. Don't lean forward, the headset falls off. Right, I'm just going to finish that off with the skew. Now, I'm not necessarily going uphill, although I'm going from thinner to fatter. We already realised that the grain is all over the place in this, and quite a lot of it's diagonal, so that's better. Richard's saying all his oak pens he makes from old whiskey barrels have an endless supply. Yeah, I don't doubt that up there. No certification, otherwise I could sell them for a small fortune. Yeah, that and the blanks you could sell for a small fortune. Biggest issue I have with oak casks is that they don't retain the smell. As soon as you put whatever finish you like, and for me it's CA, others use Yorkshire grit, others use melamine, you're sealing the smell in and tucking it away, so all you can do is say that the wood used to be a Scotch barrel, whiskey barrel. You could say exactly the same thing for Spanish sherry. I know we don't import quite so much as we used to. When I worked in a brewery for a little while between jobs, we used to bottle our own, used to import it in hogshead, 54 gallons, and bottle our own. And if I wanted them, I could have had the barrels because they were only worth about £4, if that. To send them back to Spain was not cost effective. So most of the barrels were sold or donated to staff, who in 90% of the time took them home, cut them in half, and 2 planters for the garden. I had to do something different rather than my fishing channel. Okay, that's fine. So David's a bit of an angler as well then, fisherman. It's nice to have more than one hobby. My other hobby is getting up in the morning. which is getting remotely more difficult at times. The brain's sometimes willing, but the body's not always. That's the trouble with getting old. Don't let it happen, guys, if you can avoid it. So, now that is quite a nice piece of oak. Not going to stain that, not going to colour it. Don't think it's going to do anything to it. It's quite brown. And I used to pick up particularly in the latter 10 years of working, any hardwood floating around in the skip where I was on site. Didn't matter how old it was, new timber or old timber, I used to grab it. Make sure no one was wanting it. Now that is a nice piece. If you didn't know any different, you would almost say that is pheasant wood with the grain on it. So I'm not doing a booked demo this week, guys. See, there's still 12 of you out there, so I'm not talking to myself. Scott's on Thursday tomorrow night. I'm doing next Tuesday afternoon lunchtime, and that will be the much awaited 3-dish bowl that I've been talking about that I was going to do the other week, but for some unknown reason the computer didn't want to play ball, so that ended up as a Q&A. That threw things out. So that is definitely booked for Tuesday. It might run on into 2, but it doesn't worry me. I'm sure it won't worry you. But doing it Tuesday, it means I don't have to finish at 8:30 because Rich is on doing an invasion at 9 o'clock. So Steve Dobbs is off. Well done, mate. Thank you for stopping by. Richard is saying he thought of finishing them with whiskey. That would be a shame. You could always send the whiskey down here rather than waste it on a bit of wood. So I'm not doing any booked ones this week. Like I say, next week I'm doing Tuesday. Scott's on Thursday evening, and the following week Andy's doing Tuesday lunchtime, and I'm doing Thursday evening, if I remember right. What it is Scott, being paramedic, work shift, so for him he can't always do the evening ones, and 9 times out of 10 he's in bed lunchtime or just getting up. But so we're sharing them out between us. So if you go over to Forking Bananas, Steve Twidell's channel, there is a program on there, or a calendar on there, of when everyone's doing what. But Andy, Scott and myself are sharing the 2 dates or the 2 days to fit in, and Andy and I are fitting in with Scott. But Scott, quite often, he's going to see if he can put out a premiere during the week when he's available, although once it's recorded and it's a premiere, he can set that off from his phone, so that's not a major problem. So that's why I'm not on a permanent day. I was going to be doing permanently Tuesdays. Andy wanted to start. Andy is a fellow club member, only lives down the road, so I got him, give him a hand to get started, and we're just sharing it between us. It means I don't have to think of something new each week, and if I'm not doing a programmed live, I can just drop in and do a non-program live, do another spider on the ceiling like this one is today. So if you're all subscribed to me, you will know when I go live, because quite often I don't know I'm going live until I've been down the workshop 5 minutes and think, what a prat! Why don't you turn the computer on? Which it was today. So that's why it's on today. So I'm going to say thank you guys for stopping by, keeping me sane and not talking to myself. But at the end of the day, we're all in it together. If I can answer a few questions, looks like we've done reasonably well today with questions or queries, or you wanted to know something. Does it show up better now I've turned the light out? It's quite a nice piece of oak, that. So once I've buffed them all up, I'll lay them out and take a picture. So copper owls off, Paul's off, I'm off. So in a minute you'll be talking to yourselves. But I'm desperate for a cup of coffee or a drink. So thank you once again, guys. I will just happen to pop in and I'll pop some meths on it. No, I can't. Only because I've just put CA on it. Don't think bringing the camera. That's slightly better. You can see a little bit of it. I'm still struggling with lighting to get it so that I can see and you can see. Keep changing bits and pieces around, but I will get it right. And as this is so small, doesn't give me chance to expand the light onto it or in it. Sidley's off, Richard's off, Copper Owl's gone, Gav's on his way, I'm on my way. Thanks, guys. Catch you next time or in the next broadcast or whoever's on. But do appreciate you stopping by, and thank you very much. Goodbye, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye.